All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pretty much going to give everyone here the first 15 to 17 minutes of class. We'll say 12, 15, the absolute latest, but we'll probably say 12, 13. We're going to look at the final events of the Revolutionary War today. You obviously have your quiz tomorrow, so we're going to just finish up our last couple of things. The Battle of Saratoga was a major battle at the middle of the American Revolutionary War. So you're going to take some time. You're going to read through these particular questions here, the reading here. Then you have 7 questions. You just open this with a Google Doc. I'm not going to do it for you. Just open it with a Google Doc. You could easily answer the questions on the sheet there. You're going to answer all the questions based off the reading. Try and hold yourself accountable, 15 minutes tops. And then you're going to answer all these questions. I would say questions 5 and question 6 are the most important, though. All right, definitely the ones that we need to know the best. I guarantee one of these will kind of be on the quiz tomorrow. So make sure you guys go through it. Take your time. If you finish early, let me know. Just write that you're done, and maybe I'll have you set up a focus question early. But this is what we're doing for the beginning of the period. I'll watch to see if a couple more people come in. But you guys can get started. There's no need to wait. So you're starting with this assignment first, then we'll go to the notes. We're working in reverse today. All right, so start with this. Answer the questions. I'll be taking attendance as people come in. I did see a couple people pop in late. Just if you came in a little late, you're working on the Battle of Saratoga reading and questions first. Do all of the questions, but question 5 and 6 will be the most important. You guys will have around to 12, 13, so you have another like 12 minutes left. And if you finish early, just write in the chat that you're done. No worries, Maheen. Let me know if you understand what you have to do. Just doing this reading, answering the questions, and then you have around to 12:13, and then we'll take some notes after this. But you're starting with the Google Doc first. Just under 5 minutes left. If you've taken a long time with the reading, please make sure you answer questions 5 and 6 first. Those are the most important. And you can go back and do some of the other ones. 5 and 6, you should definitely get done though.
Is question 6 like asking like when they won what happened after that helped them win?
Correct. So after they win the Battle of Saratoga, now what's going to happen that's going to help the Americans in the overall Revolutionary War? Okay, finish up 1 more minute. You could start getting your notebook ready for some notes that we're going to take, and then we'll go into the final thoughts for the quiz. Okay, guys and girls, start to finish up. Let's go over some of the major questions here. I'm going to leave the chat open to you guys. So I'm not going to do all of them. So let's start with number 2. What was the size difference between the British and American Army? Who had more men? Let's see who can get in the chat first. Excellent. Americans had a lot more men. This was typical because they're fighting on their homeland. They have a lot more soldiers nearby. Britain has to bring their troops from Great Britain, which is, a whole continent away. So Americans in these battles had a huge advantage. When you summarize the British plan, kind of the next thing we're going to do, the British plan was to divide the colonies into 2 territories, one in the north and then also in the south. And if they did that, they thought they would kind of limit the communication and limit the generals' advantages that you had and the home field advantage they had, but they were unsuccessful in doing so. I mean, why the Battle of Saratoga is such an important battle is this term turning point. And this is a big thing. Every war kind of has one. Well, most wars have one, right? Does anyone know what it means when something's a turning point? So I don't really need to know why this battle was a turning point for number 5, but what makes something a turning point? Again, I'll open it up for the chat for you guys. What makes something a turning point? When something starts going on your side, something that totally changed what was happening? Yes, excellent. Both of you guys are correct. So take a game. If you're in a game and you've been losing a lot of the games, a big portion of the game, then there's an event and there's something that happens and you turn it around and you go on to win. That's a turning point. So some wars, as you'll learn in this class, like the Revolutionary War, like the Civil War is a good example. World War II is another good example where you have a side that's losing in the beginning of the war, then something changes. There's a battle, there's an event that changes the war, okay? And you have the side that was losing that goes to winning. So this is kind of what happens here. At the beginning of the war, the Americans are kind of losing. We saw that in the Oversimplified video. When we got to New York, we were losing. There were some battles early on that were really losing. But when we win this battle, it's a turning point in the war. And America goes from losing the war to eventually getting some momentum and winning the Revolutionary War. So why is it a turning point? Well, that gets into number 6, and this is something you may see on your quiz tomorrow. The American victory was bigger than Saratoga. What happened as a result that helped the Americans? You guys could write that in the chat. This is the important thing for today. What's the answer to number 6? The Europeans helped Americans. Good. Specifically, what European group was the biggest? Spain, France, and Holland sent weapons, money. Yes, excellent. All right. Really, it's France. France is the huge help that's going to get involved here, and I'll explain a couple reasons why. Benjamin Franklin was in France, if you remember, just essentially, pleading with the French to join us in fighting this war. The French won't do it until they feel like America actually has a chance of winning. And after the Battle of Saratoga, it becomes clear to France that America has a pretty good chance of maybe upsetting the British and winning this war. So a lot of the French at the time happened to say, okay, maybe this is a good time to get involved. All right, so France gets involved, and you're going to see now how towards the end of the war, they're extremely helpful to us. All right, so we have I'm going to share this PowerPoint. Give me a second. Let me make sure that it does. Sorry about that. So the focus question here, let's just make sure it does it. Excellent. The focus question here is, what were the final events of the Revolutionary War? Which is something we're going to focus in on. This slide isn't as important as the next slide, so if you don't finish copying what's in red, it's not a big deal, but definitely just write down the focus question. The next thing we'll learn about is the Treaty of Paris, which is extremely important, all right, for the end of the lesson here. So if you remember a couple of things, after the Battle of Saratoga in 1777 and eventually 1778, Britain's going to change its whole mindset of how they fight the colonies. What they were doing was they were fighting in the New England and the middle colonies. Now they're going to change their strategy at the end of the war, and they are going to now fight in the southern colonies. All right. So they decide to move to the southern colonies and take their battles there, which they end up doing a pretty good job early on. But over time, the Americans are going to send more of their troops to the south, and eventually they're going to get caught up in a place called Yorktown, Virginia, which is kind of on the peninsula here, all right, of Virginia. It's really important area because you got some water nearby, which leads to the Atlantic Ocean. We also have the mainland of Virginia, which is also really important. So it's going to be fought in Yorktown, Virginia in 1781, all right? Essentially what's going to happen is the British general, the major general, Charles Cornwallis, is going to be trapped in Yorktown. What he's going to do is he's going to try and hold down that fort as much as possible, all right? But the problem is, if you're looking at the map here, you have American forces and French forces, but really the American forces, they're going to be marching on land to enclose Cornwallis in Yorktown. Now, this is where the French and winning the Battle of Saratoga was extremely important, because if we don't get the French involved, here's what happens. You just take the British ships to Yorktown and they can defend the city a lot better. But what they decide to do is they decide to have the French blockade the British. So if you're looking here in red, the French fleet, and then in blue is the British fleet. They stop the British fleet from coming in, and the French actually lay attacks to Yorktown. So for a full month, we lay what's called a siege on Yorktown, which is basically bombing and attacking the crap out of it. And eventually Cornwallis will run out of steam and eventually decide to surrender. When the major general of a war surrenders, that's pretty much the beginning of the end. There were other generals, there were other kind of small battles, but this is the last major battle of the Revolutionary War. And it all kind of comes together where the French were able to really help. The French's navy was a lot stronger than ours, so they really helped on water. Our soldiers were able to march on land, being enclosed on the British, and they didn't care enough to keep fighting. That's the truth of the matter. I mean, they've been fighting a war for 6 years. They thought it would last 6 weeks. Okay, they thought the colonists would kind of just stand aside and they could intimidate the colonists, and that's not what happened. And to the British, this is costing them way too much money, way too much of their time. They don't care enough. They say, you know what, enough's enough. We're going to end this. And you know what, if the colonies want to be independent, they could be independent. So that's what ends up happening. Okay, moving on to the last slide. Now, at the end of a war, you'll notice, not always, there's a treaty. There are some wars where there's not a treaty. There's what's called an armistice, but you don't need to know the difference as of now. But a treaty is an agreement to end the war. And I swear to God, they did this just to confuse you social studies students. They decide to call the Treaty of Paris in 1783. What is hysterical is, a week and a half ago, we learned about the Treaty of Paris in 1763. The same name, made in the same location, two completely different things. Okay, the Treaty of Paris in 1763, which this is a review for tomorrow, ends the French and Indian War, gives Great Britain control of the American colonies. The Treaty of Paris 1783 is something different. So this is the Treaty of Paris 1783. All right, just the 2 bullet points in red, and then you guys should be all set. I'll give you a second to kind of get yourself together. All right. The basics of the Treaty of Paris are these 2 things. It was signed in Paris, France, between America, Britain, and what they decided was that Great Britain finally agreed to recognize the independence of America. So what does that mean? When we signed the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776, really July 2nd, but July 4th, 1776, we decided in our minds we are independent, okay? But according to Great Britain, they didn't recognize our independence. They still believe, while they're fighting the war, that it's a rebellion and that they are actually still in control of us, okay? It's like, I don't know if this is a horrible example, but you guys are young kids, so we can have a little fun with it. Let's say you're 13 years old and you say, you know what? Screw you guys. You say this to your parents, right? I don't want to be a part of this family anymore. I'm going to, be on my own. I want to be independent. most likely your parents are going to say, yeah, no, that's not happening. Okay, you got a big fight or whatever. That's not how it works. Okay, your parents are your parents. Okay, presumably to the end of time. When you're 18, you may be able to, grant some independence for it. But my point is that in their minds, in Britain's minds, they did not believe America was independent. This treaty now makes it official. They need to recognize them not as American colonies anymore, but as the United States of America. And they need to give them independence and give them freedom and let them give their own country and government. Now, prior to the Treaty of Paris, okay, America used to just consist of these 13 colonies, right? You remember the proclamation line of 1763? Okay, you couldn't go west of these colonies. These 13 colonies now become the 13 states. Okay, they become official. They change from colonies to states. And now we haven't gone over this, but we will over the next couple of days. We're now going to get our first territory in the country. And territories and states are different. Okay, they're under control of the United States government. They are a little bit different. And it's said that we have now all of the territory east of the Mississippi River, if you follow my mouse here. So we get the Midwest, we get the Ohio River Valley, we get a little bit parts of the Sun Belt and some more southern colonies to help grow our country. All right? So our particular situation here is our country is now doubled in size, which is great. Or maybe even more than doubled, maybe tripled in size when you really look at it and break it down. And now colonists were able to freely move west of the Appalachian Mountains. Prior to this, they couldn't. They had the proclamation line. They would have got thrown in jail. Now people can go explore, move west of the Appalachian Mountains, create new homes, and really explore the frontier. Now, we're not at manifest destiny yet. That's not where we are. But this is kind of the beginning of everything, where people get to have that first moment of westward expansion, which is, I think, really cool. All right. So this is our situation here. This is the Treaty of Paris. Now, this is a really underrated thing. All right. Really underrated thing. America now, since they're independent, the first thing they need to do, and the most important thing they need to do, which is something we'll start after the quiz tomorrow, is they need to create a new government. Okay? They need to create a government with new laws. They have to have a country follow these new laws and really determine what type of country they want to be. What you need to understand is revolution is the easy part. Becoming independent is the easy part. Making sure the country functions and is good is the most difficult part. There's been many countries that have had revolutions, even in the last 20, 30 years, in the Middle East and Africa, and then they win their independence from their colonial countries, and then their country goes to crap. If you don't have a good government, if you don't have good leadership, revolution is practically worthless, okay? So making sure that the government you put in place is really good is the utmost priority, because if we did not put in a good government, we're not even in American history class right now. We wouldn't, okay, because we, not be here today, so to speak. So revolution's great. We're happy we won the war, but the hard work really starts now, okay, making sure this country functions and it's a country that everyone kind of likes and gets along with, so to speak. And this is a challenging situation. All right, so this is the end of the halfway point of Unit 1. After this, we'll get into government, but you obviously know you have your midpoint quiz coming tomorrow. All right, so finish up this slide. Okay, if you haven't already, please finish it up. I'm now want to take a couple of moments, and we got like 9 minutes left. I want to just kind of discuss and go over a couple things with the quiz. That's okay, no problem. Yeah, you're having some internet problems. It happens. Remember, this will be on YouTube if you need to, get any notes that you missed. All right. But I want to discuss a couple of things here. Okay. So I'm going back to sharing my screen. Another tab. Let's see if it comes up. Sometimes it doesn't. Beautiful. All right. You have, your first quiz tomorrow. All right. And I just had this very blunt and straight conversation with class 8C1. All right. And a couple things we just need to go over. All right. First and foremost, if you're looking at your classwork assignment, you have under the quizzes, you have the quiz test prep. So obviously use that to help you. all right, as you're going through it. All right. Before we go into any of the topics, okay, we need to try and just preach a couple of things, and hopefully you guys listen and really take this to heart. Okay. You need to study. You need to take the books out tonight, if you haven't already, and actually study. And why I'm saying that is this is not 7th grade, this is not 8th grade, this is an 11th grade class. A lot of this work is very difficult. I don't know who I've mentioned it to. I know I've mentioned it to a couple of people, maybe all of you. I'm just reminding you. The valedictorian in 8th grade last year got a 74 on her first quiz in my class. Why? Because this girl was a naturally smart girl, okay? Yes, it's a lot more difficult. She was a naturally smart girl. She never had to study for anything. So she assumed when she got to my class, even though I gave him the same speech, she could just pass the class. And that was not the case. She did not do well because she didn't take the books out and study. All right. It is a tricky situation for a lot of you guys. Yes, this is an 11th grade social studies class. Okay. This is a tricky situation for you guys, especially for my fully remote students. My fully remote students, I'm thinking that you're probably sitting there saying, well, you can't see me. I'm just going to look at my notes. And you're right, I can't. There's a couple of things that's going to be very tricky for you, though. All right, and I did this last year, and my class didn't believe me last year as well. You will have 35 minutes to take the quiz. You will not get a second more. You do not have time to be going back to your notes or a cheat sheet and really looking through to answer the questions. It is a very quick quiz. All right, picture in a few months, you'll be taking 50 questions in 55 minutes. I'm doing 25 and 35 right now. That's not as bad, okay? The notes you look at will waste your time. I guarantee if you say, you know what, I'm just going to keep my notebook open and I'll figure it out, you're not going to finish. You're just going to be clicking random answers at the end because you won't have the time to do it, all right? Moreover, to my remote students and everyone that's here, the goal is to pass the Regents exam. All right, these are games. These are practices for the Regents exam to win the championship, right? We're using the sports example again as I continue to do so. Okay, it's okay to fail a quiz. It's okay to not do well. It's okay to not do it if you're doing it the right way. All it is going to make you better. All right, all it is going to make you better for the reading exam. For this quiz, there are no writing responses. This is all multiple choice. Okay, this is an all multiple choice quiz. You'll have plenty of time to do it if you stay focused, okay? We haven't done any short answer practice. We haven't done any DBQs, so that of course, is not something you're expected to do at this point, all right? So you need to treat this like you're walking into my classroom, like you're gonna have dividers up, and you're going to do it, okay, without any of your notes. You're doing yourself a disservice. I promise you this. You're doing yourself a disservice if you say, I'm not gonna study, I'm gonna use my notes, and whatever happens, happens. Okay, a lot more things will go wrong, and you're hurting yourself in terms of as a student in this class. I have a good feeling. June is a long way away. I have a good feeling you'll be taking the Regents exam in person without notes. Okay, so we'll make sure we go through that. All right. Now, how do we study? Okay, my whole thing is I don't care how you do it. I don't care if it's through flashcards. I don't care if it's through practice questions. You need to be able to tell me. Let's take the word, let's take proclamation line because we're doing that today. We mentioned it today. You need to be able to tell me the proclamation line, what it was without looking back at your notes. So you need to be able to tell me the proclamation line used the Appalachian Mountains. It separated the colonies from the Native Americans. And it was a law that said no one can move westward there according to the British government. You need to be able to say something like that in your own mind. Okay? So
that's what the proclamation.
Yeah, that's the proclamation.
The line that's past the mountains.
Yeah, you couldn't pass. You couldn't pass. Okay? So to me, it's like, however that is, a lot of kids use flashcards. A lot of people maybe put it in their notebook and study it. It should be fairly easy stuff. That's just step one. There is zero chance you can get a Regents question correct, with the exception of guessing, of course, if you don't know what the term means. If you don't know what common sense means, if you don't know what the intolerable acts were, right? If you don't know why the Battle of Saratoga today is important, why it's a turning point, how do you expect to get an answer right, an 11th grade question right? You obviously can't, Okay? It is all multiple choice. There are no short answers, 25-minute multiple choice. Let me see. I got some questions here. When you study to the geography, you want us to study its benefits. Maheen, good question. It helps to know where it's located. You don't need to know for this quiz. You need to know the benefits. Okay? And, why we kind of need to, know it. So go back to your lesson 1 example on that. Okay? So how do you study a couple things? Just read through what I put here. Okay? I shared the PowerPoint with you. Okay? Command F. You'll see it on the top right of my screen. Okay? You see it on the top right of my screen, or Control F, depending on where you are. You can search in the PowerPoint if you want to. So if you wanted to search for mercantilism, just type in mercantilism. All the slides and all the Regents practice questions will come up. Okay? 2, we've talked about. Okay, use index cards, use whatever to help you. All right? Number 3, look back at the PowerPoint along with the practice Regents exam. So if you go back to the PowerPoint, every topic, I threw 1 or 2 questions up there for us to practice. Those will be very good for you to know. You'll be so surprised tomorrow how often questions come up that you've already seen before or how similar they are. You have a question on mercantilism that isn't word for word, but is so close to it that if you know how to answer the question correctly, you should be fine. And if you missed any of the lessons, you could, of course, go to my YouTube playlist if there's something you need to clarify. All the work is there for you to do. And go from there. Most of the things and topics. Liz Mel, so okay, let me go through the questions quick. Liz Mel, I've had 122 students take it, 120 have passed in the last 4 years. All right, that's the Regents exam. People will fail the first quiz tomorrow. It's okay, it's the first quiz, it's not a big deal. But by the end, most people get it. Yeah, most of the things are 7th grade topics, but we went into a lot further detail, plus there are 11th grade questions. Rosemary, when it asks, for example, mercantilism and salutary neglect, you want us to define it. Yes, I want you to be able to define it and just be able to tell me what it is. Correct. Or to study, tell someone at home. Yeah, if you have someone at home that can help you study, that would be really great. Really, really great. But not everyone has that luxury at times, so that's how it is sometimes. So quiz will be starting 8:25 tomorrow for most people. I'm sorry. The quiz will start at 8:30 sharp. You'll have till 9:05 to do it. All right? Joshua Diaz, no one has ever gotten 100 on the Regents. It's almost impossible, but I've had over 15 students get 99s. All right, 65% is passing. All right, we got a lot of questions on the Regents exam now. I will post it in the morning. Do not start the quiz tomorrow till I say. You'll have 35 minutes to do it. If you're in school tomorrow, class 8A1, you'll take it 4th period, and obviously you won't be able to use your notes, so you really need to study. All right? So 65% is passing the Regents, and then a lot of people get over 90. It's once you really get into the way the class goes and you really get into it, it's not so bad. All right. You guys are officially out of time. If you have any questions, just post them in the chat quick. All right. Best of luck tomorrow. I will not be able to help you. I'll show you how it goes. It's going to be on Google Forms, and it should be pretty straightforward. All right. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.